I feel kind of so pleased to be here listening to all this great buildup. Y'all have already said like 4 or 5 like things I was gonna you already know this stuff, right? But it's good to hear it from different voices. We're learning that in our own lives, right? So you can learn from people's experience. I'm a Course in Miracles person. That means that I have a class on Wednesday night. And do a podcast, and I think the Course in Miracles is one of the best ways to talk about spiritual principles to a Western mind, because here in America, the West, we are like knee deep, maybe neck deep in Judeo-Christian myths and upbringings and terminology and stuff like that. I'd like to give you today a new way, a Course in Miracles way that has helped me understand salvation. Salvation is a pretty loaded word. I grew up in the Southern Baptist Church where you had to get saved every week. Right? There was an altar call where he stood up to the thing and somebody was going to get saved before anybody could eat. And this idea of salvation that I grew up with was an idea that it was an outside force acting on me. That I needed to be saved from something and somebody else from outside of me was going to do it, right? That's kind of the way that we understand it. And generally and colloquially speaking, if you were going to ask somebody on the street what does salvation means, we would all probably get the same answer. And it's the answers that we grow up in this Judeo-Christian understanding of the world. But before there was the early Christian idea of salvation, the word existed before that, right? So what did it come from? And I had so much fun finding out where that word came from. And it comes from the twin goddess, Soter and Soteria. And they were the goddess, fraternal, identical, beautiful twins that God created to bring about safety and health. So if you could make it to one of their sanctuaries, and they were like temple sanctuaries in Greece, and the most famous one is in Petra. If you could make it to their temples, Homer tells us, the legend is that you would be healed of your mind. Your mind would be healed, and your body would be healed, and you would live forever. Sound familiar? That's why they used the word salvation, to talk about that idea of healing. The way the Course in Miracles talks about salvation is the movement from the past and the future into the present. It's that action. If you're present and you're here and you're now and you're happy and joyous and free, full of integrity, you don't need salvation, right? You need salvation when you're outside of the moment, to be brought back into the moment. And it's a habit that we get into. The Course in Miracles says, salvation is a promise made by God that we will find our way to God. It lets illusions go, right? Because that's what the past and the present are. That's what things that don't exist are. They're illusions. And what she's asking us to do is to think about why you need to be saved, why you need sanctuary from illusions. Wrong thinking creates suffering, right? So you need to be saved from wrong thinking. But we're doing the saving, right? We teach that in Unity. We teach that the Course in Miracles does that. That we are doing it for ourselves. We are making these choices ourselves. Lesson 308 in A Course in Miracles. And of course, does anybody know how long I've been speaking? Because I forgot to do my timer. So, Lord have mercy. Okay. So, we are saved from illusions, and the illusions basically have their origins in our own retreating into the past and our own desire to be somewhere else. Right? Do you ever get that feeling? If I would feel so much better if I was already somewhere else, or I'll be happy when, right? We know that concept. Or I was happy and this thing happened and now I can never be happy again, right? That's what we need saved from. And it's not anything somebody else is doing to us. It's what we are doing to ourselves because we are unable to examine what is happening to us. And the only way to do that is to become present in it. Course in Miracles lesson 308 says, this instant is the only time there is. Very familiar concept. I have a special role, God being God talking to us here. I have a special role for you to fill, a role for me, well, a role for you alone. Salvation awaits until I take this part as what I choose to do. Until I make this choice, I am the slave of human destiny. Because if you're not making the choice to be yourself, I guarantee you somebody else is making a choice about how you are, about how you be. Right? If you aren't making the choice and living in integrity and making choices about who you're going to be, what you're going to do, how you're going to walk in the world, somebody else is making it for you because you're not thinking about it. And our unexamined thoughts, the way we grow up in just swimming in one mindset, doesn't really allow us to think about the choices that we're making and the effects that they have on our own thinking, our own lives, our own suffering, and the suffering of the world. Because we're not on this planet by ourselves, right? We don't live by ourselves. She calls time slavery. Do you get how important that is? That's working for somebody else. When you're out of the moment, you are working and giving your energy to something else that is making choices about your life. If you can't be present, there are people that are present that will use you to their own agenda, consciously or unconsciously. I mean, it's not really that nefarious, because if you aren't thinking and making choices, making conscious choices about who you want to do and where you want to be, the stream, the movement is going in a direction and you'll just go along if you don't have your mind on. And having your mind on means that you need to understand how you are saved from illusion. Get to the sanctuary of this moment where your mind can be healed and your body can be healed, where everything is living forever only now. It is that important because the choices you make determine the life you're going to lead. It's called means and ends. And she says that very clearly in lesson 318. In me, salvation's means and ends are one. If you can be present and you can know who you are, you will make good decisions about your own life. But you can't make good decisions about your life if you're unwilling to be present with what is going down right now. Here, even the difficult parts, like I'm in pain, I'm hungry, I'm lonely, I'm tired, I'm frustrated. It's too hot, it's too cold, I'm uncomfortable, I'm getting these oogie, icky feelings, I'm joyous, I'm happy. Being present to those things gives you that information to make good choices. And making those good choices rely on your ability to stay out of the past and to stay out of the future. And it's a habit that we can develop. And this means matching ends is the idea that the choices that we make build structures that produce how we built this, that repeat and create more of how we built them. So if we build institutions and we build our lives based on illusion and lies, all it does is create more illusion in lies. It doesn't allow us to ever get out of that window of there is no other way, that unexamined thought, that unexamined thinking. Well, there's good news. She tells us what the primary tool is for being present. You ever heard the metaphor of sometimes it takes a thorn to take out a thorn? When you're in the woods, if you get stuck by a thorn, you can take a thorn from that bush and probably dig out the splinter or the whatever or the one. But you know what you do with both of those splinters when you get the other splinter out? You throw them away, right? The tool is good to do what it's supposed to do, but you don't need to keep it. That's what the idea of salvation is. You use salvation as a way to move into it. And forgiveness is the tool. Forgiveness is that thorn that we use to take out the pain of unforgiveness. And it begins, she calls this in A Course in Miracles, she says that we are never forgiving people for what they do. We are always forgiving people for what they don't do. Isn't that correct? You weren't treated right. Somebody stepped on your foot. Somebody hurt your feelings. Somebody intentionally was negligent. But it begins with ourselves. We must be able to forgive ourselves what we didn't do. We heard a story today about a gentleman desiring to be integrity more than desiring money. That's what we're talking about. That means matching ends. I want a virtuous life. I want to feel good to myself. Then you must be in integrity. To be in integrity means you have to be present to what is happening around you so that you make choices that are aligned with the truth of who you are and who you want to be and who you say you are, and keeping your promises and keeping your word and living how God asks you to live. Because why? You have a role to fulfill that nobody else can do. And using the forgiveness to be present to make good choices is how you do it. Get saved, y'all. Save yourself from making poor decisions because you're relying on information that is illusion. It's not here. The past isn't here. The present is the only thing that is here. Lesson 264 says, we are surrounded by the love of God. Join me in this today. This is salvation's prayer. We must join in what saves the world and us. We heard that today in the song. Join. When you're present, you are joining what is real and what is true. God is alive. God is this living force that is in us. If we are one and we want to learn about what that feels like and acts like, what we do is we become present to our own integrity, and we see that integrity in the other person. We become present to our own life, and we see life all around us. And we make a choice, because it is a choice at first. It really, really is. And it can be a difficult choice because joining is really very hard to do. We've learned to do it a lot in some groups, like in maybe your book club or your family or things like that. There's some areas that we can join, that we have a lot of encouragement to join. But joining the human race, joining all of what's living, joining the acts and making choices that are actually benefit all life, it can be kind of difficult because we want to take shortcuts. But we can't take shortcuts because if means don't match ends, you don't produce what you want. It's just that simple. Short-term gains, short-term results are proof that means aren't matching ends. We are surrounded by God, and salvation's prayer is joining the world. It is the world of a living God. And in lesson 241, she says, this holy instant has salvation come. It's a constant thing. I believe that the moment, the present moment, this instant is deep, very, 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 very deep. And that tool, that feeling of moving closer and deeper into this moment is our own personal choice of claiming salvation. Using forgiveness to claim salvation so that we can be present, so that we can make good choices and get what we want. What joy there is today. It is the time of celebration. For today holds out the instant to the darkened world where its release is set. The day has come when sorrows pass away and pain is gone. The glory of salvation dawns today on a world set free. This is the time of hope for countless millions. They will be united now as we forgive them. For I will be forgiven by you, my brothers and sisters, today. If we live and believe in a world where where forgiveness is available to everyone, because we know that we have stepped out of integrity, and that's all bad behavior is watching somebody unconsciously step out of their own integrity. And you know why we recognize it? Because we've all done it. You know why it's painful to watch somebody do it? Because we know how much it hurts to step out of our own integrity. Do you know have you ever admired somebody or the people I'll put it this way, the people that I'm drawn to, the people that I want to study with, the people that I want to read have a lot of integrity. I want that kind of integrity. Those people seem to really be able to not think too much and to do a whole lot. And there's power and influence that comes with integrity. Do you know that? People with integrity have power, real power, the power of influence. The people that you can rely on to always tell you the truth. A lot of people call them their best friends. Went around a room in another group I go to, says, why do you, when you're sad and you want to get out and not being sad, who do you call? Why? Because, because she doesn't, she's a straight shooter. She tells me like it really is when I need, when I need to hear it. That's somebody with integrity who cares more about the truth and believes in you that you can handle the truth more than they want to say, it's okay, it's awful to be you, I agree. I don't call those people when I'm feeling bad. They're going to agree that the world's going to hell in a handbasket. I want to be around people that have a spiritual practice that tells them that this present moment is full of joy, that this joyful present moment is full of power. This joyful, present, eternal moment is where all living things are. It's a habit of forgiveness. It's a habit of letting people off the hook for stepping out of integrity, not out of the consequences. But knowing ourselves and being aware of our surroundings and being aware of how our skin goes clammy when we tell a lie. How it is for me. Paying attention to those things allow us to know that we're quicker when we step out of integrity so that we can make good choices that serve our own power. Do you want more power in your life? Be honest. Wouldn't more power in your life maybe make things a little bit easier for you? It requires you to join the world. It requires you to join with the truth. It requires us to admit that we are a part of something and that we're not doing it by ourselves. And lastly, She says, we have forgiven, we have not forgotten. We have forgiven one another now, and so we come at last to God again. Your child returns home today. How glad we are to have our sanity restored to us, and remember that we are all one. It's a phrase I like to say is, I listen to the voice that likes me. You ever heard that, me say that? I listen to the voice that likes me. She tells me we are one, and we can act like it. And the way we act like it is to use the tools of forgiveness, to claim salvation, to be present, so we can make the decisions that are in our best interest. And the only way that we can do that is if we do it together. Thank you for doing this with me.